All right, let's talk about the one thing you absolutely have to understand to really get Cisco's application-centric infrastructure, and that's the ACI object model. It's truly the foundation of everything. Okay, so let's jump right in. The core idea behind ACI is, well, it's pretty powerful. Everything, and I mean everything, from a simple VLAN to a super complex security rule, is treated as an object. And all these objects are neatly sorted into four main policy groups you see here: security, overlay network, fabric access, and the underlay network. These four pieces come together to build the entire fabric, all the way from the physical wires up to your applications. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with the big picture, the policy model itself. Then we'll dive into something called the Management Information Tree, or MIT. After that, we'll get practical and look at how to find objects in the APIC, use the object store browser, and even query things from the command line with MoQuery. All right, first stop, ACI's policy-driven model. Let's really dig into what those four pillars of ACI configuration are all about. Each one of these groups has a very specific job. The security group, that's all about defining the rules of the road for communication, who can talk to whom. We do that with things like endpoint groups or EPGs and contracts. Then you've got the overlay, which is the logical side of things. It defines your network topology using VRFs and bridge domains. Fabric access is pretty straightforward. It's all about how your external devices actually plug into the fabric, with port channels and VPCs. And last but not least, the underlay. That's the real plumbing, the core infrastructure that uses VXLAN and MPBGP to make sure packets get where they need to go. So you can really think of it as who, where, how, and the physical path. Okay, so we have all these policies and all these objects. They have to live somewhere, right? Well, in ACI, their home is a central database called the Management Information Tree, or MIT for short. And you really need to think of the MIT as the single source of truth for the entire ACI fabric. I'm serious. If it exists anywhere in ACI, it exists as an object right here in this tree. And what's really cool is that it's not just your configs, it's also real-time data. Hardware status, what the temperature sensors are reading, any operational faults, performance stats. It is all in the MIT.
Yeah, this image right here does a great job of showing how it works. The MIT is basically a giant tree, structured exactly like a file system on your computer. You start at the top, at the root, and then everything branches out from there. Every single thing, from a logical tenant you create down to a physical fan spinning inside a switch, has its own unique spot in this hierarchy. It's all just a managed object, or MO, somewhere in the tree.
So every one of these managed objects, these MOs, has three main parts you need to know about. First is its class. The class just tells you what kind of thing it is. Is it a tenant? Is it a bridge domain? Next is the distinguished name, or DN. This is its unique address, its exact location in the tree. It tells you where it is. And finally, you have its properties. These are all the attributes and settings for that object. Things like its name, a description, maybe a VLAN ID. That tells you how it's configured. And that DN, that unique address, it is absolutely the key to everything. It's like the quote says, it's the full path to the object. If you know an object's DN, you can find it and you can manage it. This is so important when you get into automation, because that DN gives you a completely predictable way to point to any single configuration item in the entire fabric. Okay, so knowing what a DN is great, but how do you actually find one? Let's take a look at how the APIC GUI helps you out. So there are a couple of really easy ways to find an object's DN right in the GUI. First, just look at the address bar at the top of the screen. A lot of the time, it's showing you the DN of whatever you have selected. For more detail, you can click that Show Debug Info button down in the footer. The other great way is to just right-click on pretty much any object and hit Save As. That will pop up its full DN and all of its properties in either XML or JSON. That's super handy when you're writing a script and need to know the exact structure of an object.
And here's something really important to understand. Every single time you click a button in the GUI or type a command in the CLI, what's happening in the background? You're making a REST API call to the MIT. The GUI is really just a nice-looking front end that builds those API calls for you. This is why ACI is an automation powerhouse. The entire system was built to be driven by an API from day one.
Now, if you want a more direct way to explore the MIT without having to click through all the normal configuration menus, ACI has this amazing built-in tool. It's called the Object Store Browser, but you'll almost always hear it called by its other name, Visor. And it's super easy to get to. Just click the little gear icon up in the top right corner of the APIC. The best part? It's completely read-only. That means you can click around and explore everything in the fabric without any fear of accidentally breaking something. It's like a safe sandbox for your curiosity. And what I love about Visor is how simple it is. You can just search for a class of objects, like show me all bridge domains, or you can plug in a DN if you already know it. Once you find what you're looking for, you can just use the arrow keys to walk up the tree to its parent or down to its children. It's just a fantastic, intuitive way to see how everything in your configuration is actually connected. So yeah, in a nutshell, Visor is your go-to tool for just exploring and discovering what's in the MIT. It's perfect for figuring out those object relationships, double-checking your configs, and this is a big one, finding the exact class names and DN structures you're going to need when you start scripting. Okay, let's switch gears. For all of you who live on the command line, ACI has you covered with a utility that's pretty much the CLI version of Visor. It's called MoQuery. So think of it like this. Visor is for browsing around and exploring visually. MoQuery, on the other hand, is all about speed and automation. It's a direct, scriptable query tool. If you know what you want and you need it to get it fast or get it over and over again in a script, MoQuery is what you're going to use. If you just hop on an Apex command line and type MoQuery -H, you'll see all the options. But the big ones you'll use all the time are C for class, to find all objects of a specific type, D for a specific DN, to zero in on one exact object, and F to add filters, which lets you get really specific about what you're looking for. And here's a perfect example of it in action. In this command, we're running Aqua Query with the class FVA-EPG, which is just the internal name for application EPGs. Then we just pipe that output to grep to pull out only the DNs. And just like that, boom, you have a clean list of every single EPG in your fabric. It's an awesome way to get a quick inventory. Now check this out. This is a much more targeted query. We're using the -D flag and giving it the full DN of one specific EPG. The result? You get a full printout of every single property for that object and its current value. This is so useful for checking the state of a config right from the CLI, especially when you're troubleshooting. So at the end of the day, it's all about picking the right tool for the task at hand, right? For your everyday configuration and just checking the high-level status, the APIC GUI is your best friend. When you need to explore and really understand how things are connected, you'll fire up Visor. And when it's time for automation, scripting, or just super fast lookups, MoQuery is the way to go. If you can master all three of these, you'll have complete control over how you interact with your ACI fabric. Because really, understanding this object model isn't just some academic exercise. It is the absolute key that unlocks powerful automation. Once you get this, you can start doing some amazing things, generating custom reports, automatically configuring network policies based on what your applications are doing. Suddenly, the entire ACI fabric becomes an open book, ready for you to not only read, but to write to.